the cloud. Very good.
Yep,
So
it's recording now.
it's recording. Very good. So let's see who is on here. Let's see if we can start. Okay, Lucian, good evening. Sami, Mike Shirazi, good to see all of you. iPhone, I guess, Danny. I know. Okay, Andre. Very
Yes,
good.
sir.
People will join. Very good. Irene Goldstein, probably it's Benson and Irene together. Okay, very good. Where are you, Rabbi?
He's there.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Okay. So first again, thank you and welcome to our Magen David community. And Bernard, do you want to say a few words before the class?
Yeah, 30 seconds because no one's here to hear me. We're here to hear our dear Rav Miller. Okay, guys. On a professional note, I just want to give a little bit of highlight. Rabbi Miller is 30 years old, has a wonderful family of 2 kids, right, Rabbi?
Right.
And the tzaddiket as a wife. More on the professional side, he was raised in Los Angeles. He's got a fascinating story, which I hope at another date he'll be able to tell us his story. But he received a smicha from the yeshiva of Rabbi Yosef Eliyahu, who's the son of the Rishon LeZion, the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he acquired his master's degree in Jewish philosophy from Darchei HaTorah Institute in Yerushalayim. On a personal level, I've known the Miller family for a very long time. I had the pleasure of knowing Rabbi Mimoun Miller's father, Zichron Tzadik Livracha. He was an amazing man. He has a shul about a mile away from our home here. And I've had the pleasure of hosting Rabbi Miller's two younger brothers at our house. So really an amazing family. And without further ado, I'm really excited for you guys to hear the class. So I'm going to put myself on mute and maybe off a video and really look forward to it, Rabbi.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. And it's great being with everyone here tonight. Thank you for Magen David Sephardic Congregation, your board, for hosting me. And thank you, Bernard. I love your energy. I could feel your energy over the phone whenever I'm speaking to you. So it's really a pleasure to be speaking in front of all you today, and a zchut to discuss some words of Torah. Since we're right now during the Omer period, I wanted to share with you a few fascinating insights about the greatest figure for Am Yisrael, whose role in history extends to this very day. And he can be accredited for pretty much all the Torah and all the Jewish spirit that we have today. And I'm talking about Rabbi Akiva. The Omer period, the days between Pesach and Shavuot, is a very happy time, especially if you live in a place like Washington, D.C., or any part of the northeastern United States. Bernard and I, we're living in Southern California. We don't really experience the joy of the change of seasons. But in your part of the country, there is an immense joy in seeing this transformation taking place in front of your own eyes, everything blossoming again. Hashem wants us to be happy and to appreciate the season to the max. So he therefore gave us the mitzvah of counting the Omer. The counting the Omer is a beautiful way of making sure that we're mindful every single day counts, appreciating the beauty that every single day brings about it as the spring starts to sprout more and more. And just to be aware of the gift of time in general, and to make sure that we're not taking it for granted. The Ramban, Nachmanides, says that the days of the Omer are to be considered like one gigantic Chol HaMoed. So like you have Chol HaMoed between the first days of Sukkot and last days of Sukkot, the Omer is the Chol HaMoed between Pesach and Shavuot. It's really all part of the same thing. So why is it that this period became a period of mourning? Some grow out their hair, some don't listen to music, we don't get married during the Omer. So I'm sure you all know that the Chachamim tell us that it's because Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students who didn't give enough due respect to one another. And because of this, we have to go into mourning. And when do we stop the mourning? We stop it at Lag BaOmer and we make a big celebration. Why? Says the Shulchan Aruch, because some say she'az pasku milamut, because that's when they stopped dying. Well, it's not such a cause for celebration. Basically, all the Talmidim who were in existence died. They all died out. And there's no one left to die. So they stopped dying. How does that warrant a celebration? And if we're already going to speak about this period, we're pretty much detached from this mourning practice. I mean, even people who are very makpid about all the rules, people listen to a cappella music, like songs like the Maccabees. Like with today's technology, it sounds better than the live music that we're used to. So even people who do observe it are a little detached from the reason why we're observing it. Why do we have to observe the death of 24,000 Talmidim? I understand if we're mourning the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. But students who died in the yeshiva, it's tragic. But how many times, unfortunately, Am Yisrael suffered with plagues, pogroms, and inquisitions, and expulsions throughout the ages. If we would commemorate each one of those days, we wouldn't have one day in the calendar to rejoice or to get married in. So why the Chachamim say that this one, the death of the 24,000 Talmidim Rabbi Akiva, is so important that we have to make it a day of mourning? And in order to understand this, I want to take a deep dive first into understanding who the great Rabbi Akiva was and why he is the most important Jewish leader of all time, one of the most important Jewish leaders of all time. Rabbi Akiva is a unique personality in our heritage. He appears in a relatively later period in our history, but from his value, he is valued like one of the patriarchs of our nation. We find comparisons between Rabbi Akiva and Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu sees Rabbi Akiva in a vision and he says, this is how they're going to learn Torah. I'm not going to go into that. He's compared to Ezra HaSofer. Rabbi Akiva is the culmination of a grand chain of generations of the greats of our nation, culminate with Rabbi Akiva. Most of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah that we have today, was formed in the Bet Midrash of Rabbi Akiva. Of course, there are other Batei Midrash as well, other schools of learning. But Rabbi Akiva is the main one. It's the central one, it's the most significant one. Rabbi Akiva was born in the 1st century CE, the Common Era, after the destruction of the Second Temple. And he was a young man during the time of the beginning of the great Jewish revolt against the Romans. There was 3 waves. His father, what we know about Rabbi Akiva is that his father, Yosef, we know that he was a convert, or the son of converts, descendants of Sisera, who was one of the great commanders of the armies who fought ancient Israelites. And it's very well known, the story that Rabbi Akiva was a shepherd for Kalba Savua, one of the wealthiest Jews of the time, a wealthy philanthropist and an influential Jew, and he was his shepherd. The daughter of Kalba Savua, Rachel, falls in love with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva falls in love with her, and she was offered the best shidduchim to marry the upper crust, the upper scale of the Jews during the time, but she decided to marry Rabbi Akiva, the shepherd Akiva, who was not Rabbi Akiva yet. He was, as they say, an ignoramus. He never opened the book of Torah. Actually, it says that he hated Talmidei Chachamim. Rabbi Akiva said before he became a Talmid Chacham, Mi yiten li Talmid Chacham ve'eschenu kachamor. If I will see a Talmid Chacham, a rabbi, I will bite him like a donkey. Say, why like a donkey? Because when a donkey bites, he bites till the end and he breaks the bones. I want to break the bones of Talmidei Chachamim. It probably, this animosity between Rabbi Akiva and Talmidei Chachamim was because the Talmidei Chachamim of the time were aloof, were above the proletariat, and they were very strict in dinim of tum'ah and tahara, purity, laws of purity. We're dealing a lot with the laws of purity in the Parashot HaShavua, and they would be afraid if someone would speak to them, that they will be spat on by the person who's speaking to them. So instead of requiring everyone to wear masks, right, they kept the distance. And Rabbi Akiva felt that that is not a proper action of Talmidei Chacham, and we'll see how Rabbi Akiva in the end, when he becomes a Talmid Chacham, he remembers that. Kava Savua, in any case, makes a vow that if you, Rachel, my daughter, marry this simple shepherd, you will not see a penny from me. Rachel and her father appreciated Torah. She came from a house of Torah. But her father knew that if she would marry this person who's not Talmid Chacham, he didn't want that. But she saw his deep qualities that he had. She saw inside of Rabbi Akiva. And she said, I could make Rabbi Akiva into this great man that he's supposed to be. And successful she was. Rabbi Akiva became the leading Torah scholar of his generation and perhaps of all time. Rabbi Akiva promises Rachel that when he becomes wealthy, he'll buy her what is called Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, a beautiful ornament that was one of the best jewelries of the time. And in fact, after 24 years of becoming a Talmid Chacham, he was able to acquire her this precious gift. And this is the story of Rabbi Akiva in a nutshell, his upcoming and how he was brought up. But what was so unique about Rabbi Akiva, that it says, in fact, that all the halachot are according to Rabbi Akiva. What was so unique about him? From Rabbi Akiva, we learn the true essence of the Torah. He's the one who said, "Ve'avta le'acha kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah." That is the foundation of the Torah, is love your neighbor, love your fellow Jew. In fact, I heard once a beautiful insight on this. Ze klal gadol b'Torah could mean that's the foundation of the entire Torah, or it could mean, what's gadol b'Torah? We say about a Talmid Chacham, this person is a gadol b'Torah. He's a great Torah scholar. So Rabbi Akiva says, "Ve'avta le'acha kamocha ze klal shel gadol b'Torah." If you want to know who's a person who's gadol b'Torah, you have to examine and see what is the overall message of this Talmid Chacham, of this rabbi. If from all the words, the overall message of this Talmid Chacham is "Ve'avta le'acha kamocha," then that shows that he's a gadol b'Torah. But if you have even the greatest rabbi, but from his grand message comes, look at those people, they're not doing the right thing. These people should be screamed at and yelled at and put down because they're not going to the laws of the Torah. That's his overall message, then he's not a gadol b'Torah. This is what Rabbi Akiva learned, because when he saw the Talmidei Chachamim of his previous generation, how they were detached from the people, how the message that came out from them unintentionally was no love. Rabbi Akiva says, love is the foundation of the Torah. You can learn Torah all day and all night, and it could make you into a cruel, unsympathetic person. Because everywhere you go, because you learned halakha, everywhere you go, you see isurim, you see transgressions, you see averot. It could drive you insane, and it could turn you into a fundamentalist. Like Akiva says, when I am going to make a new generation of Talmidei Chachamim, I'm going to make them ve'avta le'acha kamocha. And it's not by mistake that, Rabbi Akiva had to learn this the hard way. He saw his own Talmidim, how their limud Torah did not help them. Lo nahagu kavod ze bazeh, they did not respect one another, and therefore they all died in the war. We'll see more about that. And it's not a coincidence that Rabbi Akiva was the one to teach that ve'avta, love, is the foundation of the entire Torah. Rabbi Akiva did not demand perfection just from himself alone. He actually demanded the unification and the bonding and the connection of all, that everything should connect together. That is love. Rabbi Akiva lived and breathed the value of love, bonding and connection in its deepest sense, starting with his first love, his love to his wife, Rachel. That is his pastoral romance. He's the love of a shepherd. It's a profession that is a fertile ground for romance. So that's the background of Rabbi Akiva. But from this past experience that Rabbi Akiva had of understanding love, he teaches something remarkable, and I'm going to share with you the screen right now to show you this. It says over here, we're reading the Hebrew first. Amar Rabbi Akiva, chas v'shalom, lo nechlak adam Yisrael al shir hashirim shelo tetameh et hayadayim. There's a discussion over here about religious items, holy items, like Sefer Torah, metameh et hayadayim. Okay, if it gets impure, then it could make others impure. The holier something is, the more potential for it to make someone impure if it does become impure. So some wanted to suggest the shir hashirim is not holy and therefore cannot make anyone impure. So Rabbi Akiva, chas v'shalom. No one disagrees that shir hashirim shel tetameh et hayadayim. She'en kol ha'olam kulo kedai kayom shenitan bo shir hashirim Yisrael. The entire world is not worth it for the day that shir hashirim was given to Am Yisrael. She'kol ha'ktuvim kodesh, all the scriptures, Chamisha Torah, Nevi'im, Ktuvim, are all kodesh. V'shir hashirim kodesh kodashim. Shir hashirim is holy of holies. Very quick over here. This is in the English. For all the writings are holy, but the songs of songs is the holy of holy. What is this coming to say? Usually everything that we experience in life, there's either kodesh or chol. And everything contains, there's some kodesh in the chol, some chol in the kodesh. There's some mundane in the holy, some holy in the mundane. What makes Shir HaShirim so unique? It's that it's a mundane song. It's a shir shel chol. It's a love song between a man and a woman. Anyone who read Shir HaShirim, who knows how to understand the Shir HaShirim, it's just expressions of love between a man and a woman. So much so that Hashem's name is not mentioned once the entire Shir HaShirim. It's a secular song. But it's completely kodesh. And this is what makes it kodesh kodashim. Kodesh kodashim is a term for something that it abides on surface level. Looks like it's the most mundane, but when we make it holy, it becomes kodesh kodashim. It's important to note that this over here is the expression of the love between a man and a woman. That's what Shir HaShirim is. And when it's pure love, pure unadulterated love, then it itself transforms into the love of Hashem. It's all in one and the same. There's one other thing that is called Kodesh Kodashim in the Torah, and that is in the Bet Mikdash. What was in Kodesh HaKodashim? There was an Aron, which contained the Torah. And on top of the Aron, there were the Kruvim, an image of a girl and a boy in an embrace, a symbol of love. So you see that in the most holy places, the Kodesh HaKodashim, we see the Chol and the Kodesh coalesce together. That is true purity. The expression of love between man and a woman is, when it's pure, it's an expression of the love of Hashem. This is so important why I'm pointing this out to you, so in order to understand the entire story of Rabbi Akiva in the morning period of the Omer, and how Rabbi Akiva is responsible for the continuation of Torah until today. There's so many lessons that we can learn from this. What is a true Torah perspective on life? How should we lead our life to ultimately bring redemption to Am Yisrael? You have to understand the relationship between Kodesh and Chol. So this love that Rabbi Akiva had for everything, it grew and it blossomed and it grew further until it became the purest, unadulterated love of Hashem. At the end of his life, when the Romans took Rabbi Akiva out to be executed for being in support of the opposition and for teaching Torah barabim, for teaching Torah to the masses, they took him out to be executed, and it was the time of Kriyat Shema, recitation of Shema. The time was about to be up for the day to read Kriyat Shema. And it says, "Vayu mesarkim et besaro b'masrekot shel basar." They were raking his flesh with iron combs, torturing him to death. And he was reciting the Shema. So his students came to him and said, "Rabbeinu, our teacher, Ad kan, even now, as you suffer, you're reciting Shema, Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha, and you shall love Hashem your God. He said to them, Kol chayai, all my days, I have been troubled by the verse, Bechol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, with all your soul. Meaning, even if God takes your soul, you should express your love for him. I said to myself, when will this opportunity ever be afforded to me so I could fulfill this verse? Now that it's been afforded for me, I should not fulfill it. I should not fulfill my fullest expression of love to Hashem, even as he's taking my soul. He prolonged his uttering of Echad, as by the way is halakha, and the halakha could only work in the Sephardic way. Echad, the Dalet has to be a soft Dalet, like a TH in English, and then it could be prolonged. Echad. And as Rabbi Akiva is being put to death, he elongates the Echad, and with that word, with the utterance of Echad, right? That was his final word. A voice that descended from heaven and said, Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva. Happy are you, Rabbi Akiva, sheyatz'a nishmatcha be'echad, that your soul left your body as you uttered one. The oneness of everything, the love of everything, the love and the oneness that permeates our entire existence, our entire life. That's what Rabbi Akiva was about. Rav Kook described who blends all types of love. Love for humanity, love of the nation. Are you guys able to see me, to hear me? Okay, because I had a little problem with the connection. He's able to, all the forms of love of humanity, love of Torah, love of the nation, and the love of God, all together in an exceptional way. That was the way of Rabbi Akiva. Not to view the Torah as something that I need to do for my spiritual, religious life, so I have some kind of balance in my life. I have my Torah life, I have my mitzvot time, and then I have my family time. I have the time where I have dinner, I have the time where I go out to the movies. We balance life out. But rather, as the Torah is something that is Torat Chaim, it's something that expands into all there is. To view the Torah as the bonding chemical that connects me to the life force that is in every area of life. That's what Rabbi Akiva was about. He said, if we want to survive as a nation, we can't keep the Torah just in the Bet Midrash. It can't be just the Torah of the Talmidei Chachamim who are over here, and they are, they keep their distance from the Amei Aratzot, from the other people. It has to be a Torah that permeates into all of life. Shir HaShirim Kodesh Kodashim, to bring Hashem into the romance of your life, into every single area of life, into your stroll, into your hikes, into nature. Therefore, it's possible that only a person as great as Rabbi Akiva could truly understand the connection between Kodesh, between holy, and Chaim, and life. And this is why it was Rabbi Akiva specifically who supported Bar Kochva in his revolt against the Romans. There were some other rabbis who also supported the revolution and supported Bar Kochva, but Rabbi Akiva was the most vocal supporter of Bar Kochva. In fact, the revolt was prepared politically by Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because Bar Kochva was not a Talmid Chacham, so a lot of people doubted: is it really warranted what he's doing? Is it okay for Bar Kochva to take arms against the Romans? Rabbi Akiva was Gadol Hador. He was the greatest of his generation. And yet, the Rambam says that Rabbi Akiva was Nos'e Kelav shel Bar Kochva. He was the arms bearer of Bar Kochva. And he called him Mashiach, meaning that he was fit to be Melech HaMashiach. This is worth it to look inside and to see the words of the Rambam, because this challenges what we always hear about what Mashiach is supposed to be. We always think that Mashiach is supposed to be this person who will appear out of nowhere, out of thin air, this great saint of a man, and he might come with, he might have some blemishes, he might have wounds from all our chataim, white donkey, and then all of a sudden we'll all know the Mashiach is here. And that he's just going to appear out of nowhere. And he's this great mystical figure. But over here you see from the Rambam and from Rabbi Akiva, who's teaching us what Mashiach is. And again, it's the combination of Kodesh and Chol together in a way that creates not just Kodesh, but Kodesh Kodashim. Look at this. He says, "Ve'al ya'aleh datcha shemelech Mashiach tzarich la'asot otot u'muftim u'mechadesh dvarim ba'olam u'mechayeh metim." Melech Mashiach doesn't have to be a person who does all these different kinds of wondrous miracles or makes new things in the world like mechayeh metim, like resurrects the dead. Ein hadavar kach. She'arei Rabbi Akiva chacham gadol b'chachmei Mishnaya. Rabbi Akiva was the greatest of the Chachamei Mishnah. V'hu haya nos'eh kelav shel ben Koziva hamelech. Reading over here in the English, he was King Ben Koziva's arms bearer. V'hu haya omer alav shu melech HaMashiach, and said that he was the King Messiah. V'dimahu v'kol chachmei doro shu melech HaMashiach, and all the generation, all the sages of the generation believed that he was Melech HaMashiach until he was killed because of his sins. But Kochva was not a Talmid Chacham. He was a political leader. He was a commander, a person who fought the battles of Am Yisrael for Am Yisrael's independence. And that's what Rabbi Akiva supported. So Rabbi Akiva sees the messianic value in the nationalistic awakening that the revolt of Bar Kochva started. So not all of Rabbi Akiva's generation saw the holiness that was within the revolt, but Rabbi Akiva, again, is that figure who was able to see the holiness in all the parts of life. In the awakening of nationalism, he sees holiness, the nationalism of Am Yisrael. And what others see as pure materialism, mundane politics, or just nationalism, Rabbi Akiva sees this as holiness. By the way, it's fascinating to note that Bar Kochva also repaid Rabbi Akiva for his support. And on some of the coins that were discovered from the period of Bar Kochva, there are coins. I will show you how they found this in Ir David. They found this in the city of David. You could go and see these coins. These were minted during the time of Bar Kochva. They took Roman coins, and what they would do is they would put it inside, they would heat it up, and then we would remold it. So they found these coins, revolt coins. On one side, you see on the right side is the Bet Mikdash, and it says Shimon, Shin Mem on one side, Ain Vav Nun on the other, spelling the name of Shimon Bar Kochva, the leader of the revolt. So very clearly saying that we want to see Bet Mikdash that was taken by the Romans and made it into a pagan temple. We want to see the Bet Mikdash back there. But on the other side of the coin, it says in Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew writing, Lecherut Yerushalayim, to the freedom of Jerusalem. And then when the archaeologists looked at the picture, they're like, what is this thing over here in the middle? Looks like a vase. There's some object over here to the left of it. They didn't really understand what it was until they realized it's an aguda of Arba Minim. It's the Arba Minim together. So you have over here the lulav right in the middle. On the right, you have one arava and one hadas and one etrog. Now, the only thing that puzzled them was they knew that you need to have 3 hadassim and 2 aravot. What happened? Why is there only 1 hadas and 1 arava? Make a few hadassim, you have a few aravot. But this is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva in the Mishnah. The halacha is not like him. But since this was Rabbi Akiva's opinion, Bar Kochva repaid the favor and pretty much was the publisher, as you see right over here in front of your own eyes, the writing, the minting of Bar Kochva's army himself, being the publisher of the halachot of Rabbi Akiva. The example that I could give would be like Rabbi Ovadia, but before there was a printing press, he couldn't just print all his books, Chazon Ovadia. So on the coins, they will put his halachot. This you should do, this you should not do. This was the publication of Rabbi Akiva's halachot that you could see in front of your own eyes. And see over here on the left side, that's the etrog on the bottom. Show you the Mishnah inside. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Sheshem shilulav echad ve'etrog echad, kach hadas echad va'arava echad. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So in any case, in the Midrashim of Chazal, you see many different stories about Rabbi Akiva, how he was a political leader. He visited a lot of the different Jewish communities in Israel and also in Chutz La'aretz, places as far as Iraq. Nehardea is next to Mosul in Iraq. Rabbi Akiva went all around those places where there were Jews in order to prepare the revolt. He created this underground Jewish movement to revolt against the Roman Empire. One more thing about the revolt and Rabbi Akiva is something that we're all very familiar with, but I don't think we really understand the significance of it. And it's during the Haggadah Shel Pesach. On the beginning of Haggadah Shel Pesach, right after Avadim Hayinu, we get to a story. מעשה ברבי אליעזר, ביהושע, באלעזר בן עזריה, רבי עקיבא ורבי טרפון, שהיו מסובים בבני ברק, והיו מספרים ביציאת מצרים כל אותו הלילה. There was the five rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer, Yehoshua, Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. They were sitting in Bnei Brak, and they were discussing Yetziat Mitzrayim kol oto halayla, all of that night. Ad sheba'u talmidehem v'amu lahem, until their students came and told them, Rabotenu Egia zeman kriyat shema shel shachrit. The time for kriyat shema of shachrit has come. Now, the question is, it doesn't say that it was Pesach night. Okay, it mentions nowhere that it was Pesach night. Now, what night was it? Now, also, this Leil HaSeder was a very strange one, if it was Leil HaSeder, because where are the families? You only have these rabbis all together. Where are their families? And their students are not even in the room. Their students are outside, and they have to come to tell them, you have the greatest rabbis of the generation all in the same room discussing, let's say, Leil HaSeder, and their Talmidim are not going to be there. Their families are not going to be with them. And, by the way, Bnei Brak was the city of Rabbi Akiva. And he was the youngest of all of those people mentioned. Rabbi Eliezer is way older than him. Yehoshua, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah are all way older than Rabbi Akiva. He was the youngest of them all. So what are they doing at the house of Rabbi Akiva? He's the younger one. He should be going to them. But now we could understand, according to the story, that Rabbi Akiva was the one who planned the revolt. The Kol Oto Halayla is not referring to Leil HaSeder. The Laila was referring to the darkness of the Galut that was about to come. And they were discussing strategies of how to get out of the Galut. And therefore, the Talmidim were out of the room because these rabbis were discussing top secret strategies of how to defeat the Romans. Not one word out of this meeting is supposed to go outside. And they were planning their own Yetziat Mitzrayim, their own exodus from the subjugation of the Romans. And they were designing the Roman revolt, the Jewish revolt against the Romans. And that's why they all came to the house of Rabbi Akiva, who was the right-hand man of Bar Kochva. And the students were keeping guard outside that no one should come and interfere until the students come and say, Higia zman kriyat shema shel shachrit. The time for the Geula of Am Yisrael has come. It's time to actually go to war and bring about the Geula. So Rabbi Akiva knows how to appreciate the redemption, how it comes about. And this extends until our generation. And now we could understand why the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were not just Talmidim in the yeshiva. First of all, 24,000 is a very large number. It's probably exaggerated because, in the Talmud, we're not so precise on numbers. We give a number as a qualitative number. Not today, in history and in our books, we're very careful to write down dates and write down the exact number of people who fell and died in the war. That is not a practice that was done during the time of the Gemara. You read in the Gemara, they don't mention, dates and time so much. We're way more fascinated in numbers than then. It was a qualitative number. There's many multiples of 12 that reappear in the stories of Rabbi Akiva. He was 12 years in the Bet Midrash, and then he came back after 12 years. He was going to go back to his wife, but his wife said if he goes back to learn, then she would still be okay with it. So he went back for another 12 years, and each 12 years, another 12,000 Talmidim. So these numbers are not necessarily precise. Also, you can't fit 24,000 Talmidim in one yeshiva. Not today, and especially not back then. The Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were Talmidim in spirit, were people who were his students, probably a large number of the warriors of Bar Kokhba, who are also the ones learning Torah, as you said, spreading the halachic teachings of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva paid a very heavy price for supporting Bar Kokhba. 24,000 of his Talmidim, of his disciples, die in the battles with the Romans. There are many proofs for this. One of them is Rav Shrira Gaon. Rav Shrira Gaon was one of the Geonim. The Geonim come right after the closing of the Talmud. Rav Shrira Gaon's writing in his Igrot. He writes that the Talmidim Rabbi Akiva died in the Shmada. Shmad or Shmada is a term that all the Geonim use in order to describe the crushing the crushing effects of the Roman Empire on the revolt of Bar Kokhba. So the Shmada, they died in the Shmada. And the reason why they died is because the Lo Nahagu Kavod Ze Bazeh. We know from historical records there are many different sects who were fighting the Romans. And what was common between all of them, there was a lot of infighting. Jews against the Jews. If we were united, then no one, if Am Yisrael is united, no one could ever defeat us. But we should note what was the kavod that did not give one another. We know that many of those infightings were because of religious reasons. People who held that you're in a different standard than mine. You're not keeping the Torah as much as I am. And this kavod, that you can't appreciate, just the fact that there's another Jew who's also fighting for his independence. You don't see the kodesh in that. That is what Rabbi Akiva commanded us to mourn, and that's what we mourn until today. That Rabbi Akiva's message of having a Torah that is a loving Torah, probably Rabbi Akiva only developed that idea afterwards. He said, Ze klal gadol b'Torah, that's the entire Torah, is that the appreciation of the Torah in all the areas of life and having love as a foundation of the entire Torah, that if your message, you're learning Torah, but your message from it comes that I have to kill that other Jew, I have to hate that other Jew, then that's not Torah. And that's what we mourn during this time. This time, more than ever, is a time of the building of the national character of our nation. Why is that? Why am I saying that? When we leave Mitzrayim, Yetziat Mitzrayim, we're not yet into a people yet. We're like a baby. We were just born. We're developing the character of our nation. We're developing our national identity during these 49 days of Sfirat Omer until we reach Shavuot, in which we could take the spiritual doctrine of Am Yisrael and apply it to us. But first, we have to be strong in our national identity. Therefore, the time, this time, the time period between Pesach and Shavuot is that time, the time of the building of the nation. It was during that time that there was a chance to bring back Malchut Yisrael, to bring back the political reality of Am Yisrael being in control of Eretz Yisrael. But because of the lack of kavod, because of the lack of midot, because of the lack of appreciation, respect, and love between people, that didn't happen. But nowadays, it's fascinating to see how everything is coming back, and at this period. When do we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut? When do we celebrate Yom Yerushalayim? All of them happen in the middle of the Omer, during the time of the building of our national identity. It's not by mistake. It's not by mistake that we celebrate the foundation of the state of Israel, which is the continuation Rabbi Akiva fought for, what he understood Messianic times to be. and our gaining back of the tremendous miracles that happened in 1967, and that should continue to happen today, are happening during this time. And therefore, slowly, the days of the Omer are turning from a time of mourning into a time of celebration. In fact, if enough Rabbanim came together, we can't change the halakha, each community on its own. You make the Torah into to be splintered into so many different communities. But if all the Talmidei Chacham came together and recognized the miraculous times in which we're living right now, we could turn these days again into Yemei Simcha, which they deserve to be. But we have to remember, first of all, like Rabbi Akiva, that Torah is not just something that I have on the side. I don't just go to the Bet Knesset on Shabbat or in the morning and then I leave the Torah. Judaism is supposed to be part of everyday life, and even the mundane things that we do, we make it into Kodesh Kodashim. This past week I was able to be at a Bet Knesset. There was a kiddush, and there was such a simcha in the place. A person had a baby girl, but they brought the simcha into the Bet Knesset. Person has a success in their business. They make a mesibat hoda'ah, Thanksgiving for Hashem, in the Bet Knesset. Everything is part of the unity of Hashem, and should not be splintered off. We should find the beauty and the godliness in everything, and also to remember what the character of the Torah, the overall message of the Torah is. And remember this: if you see that the overall message of the Gadol B'Torah is love, is unity, is connection between other Jews, then he's a Gadol B'Torah. If the message is those Jews are bad, those Jews are not good, if it's about disconnection, it's about separation, that's not a Gadol B'Torah. So may we be zocheh to see miracles, just like we saw during our days in 1949, 1948, and also during the Yom Yerushalayim. We should see many more miracles in our days. And we should remember that we are the ones who are bringing Mashiach. We should remember what the figure of Mashiach is not just a mystical figure that comes down. We are the one who create the political reality for Mashiach to appear in the world. I would like to share with you a piyut, if you would like, a piyut that we could learn together. It's a traditional Moroccan piyut of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai for next week. If you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, bechavod. Beautiful.
Go for it.
Yeah. If you know the song, then you could participate with me. I don't know how well it goes over the Zoom, but let's do 5 verses. Bar Yochai Yesod Olam, Bar Yochai Yesod Olam, Bo Bahar Melech Olam, Bizchuto Omed Olam, Ad Bo David Melech Bar Yochai, Ashrei Chelko ve'ashrav, Ashrei Chelko ve'ashrav, ve'ashrei kol haverav, Ashrei hoge amarav, Ma'adanei HaMelech Bar Yochai. Yatzak Mayim Ashrehu, Yatzak Mayim Ashrehu, Al Yedei Eliyahu, Kosod Nifla Horahu, Yichen Tziva HaMelech Bar Yochai. Avodah zot tefila, Avodah zot tefila, Hi ha'ola lemala, et zodotei ha'kinam, Ki chen yisad HaMelech Bar Yochai. Bar Yochai yesod olam, Bar Yochai yesod olam, Bo bahar melech olam, Avo ben David melech Bar Yochai. One before the last. Ze hayom lagla Omer, Ze hayom lagla Omer, Nehalel Omer, Al kadosh Amer, Shir shir el HaMelech בר יוחאי, בר יוחאי יסוד עולם, בר יוחאי יסוד עולם, בו בחר מלך עולם, זכותות כל מענה, ועל ישראל לכוונה. אבו בן דוד מלך בר יוחאי.
חזק וברוך, חזק וברוך.
כל הכבוד, כל הכבוד.
Sami, we need this song for the Ilula next week, Sami.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going
I
to
heard someone
look
was
at
singing with me, so I have hope.
בר יוחאי, דה, 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 דה. Okay.
So, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and hope to see each other in Smachot Bezat Hashem.
Rabbi, can we open it for questions if someone has any question?
Of course, my pleasure.
Go ahead.
Rabbi, how are you going to leave Gan Eden of Los Angeles, which is not Gan Eden anymore, to come to the... But you said something nice about Washington. I have
Yes.
been here. I have
There
been
is something,
here.
I lived in New York for 2 years. I live in Manhattan. And every place has its charm and its beauty. Chen hamakom al yoshvav. Right? Every place has its charm. And there is a charm in those places as well. But
Rabbi, you lived in Jerusalem, no?
I lived in Yerushalayim for many
Of
years. I
course.
lived in Yerushalayim for 8 years.
So how can you compare Yerushalayim to any other place in all over the world?
Cannot compare. Every single day I pray for the day that I will return to Yerushalayim. You don't
Amen.
understand how a main focus it is on my life. Of course, you can't compare.
Rabbi, that's the plan of Magen David congregation to buy someplace in Israel and move as a community.
I
God
will.
willing.
It's the best thing in the world.
Rabbi, and to move the building. I
It
know.
says that in the time of Mashiach, all of the Bate Knesset in Chutz La'aretz will become part of Eretz Israel.
Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Harim Saviv La.
והשם סביב לעמו מעתה ועד.
מעתה ועולם, you know.
Rabbi, Bar Kochba, was he the king of Israel at that time? Or what was his connection with Rabbi Akiva?
So, as you saw, the Rambam actually calls him Hamelech, because Hamelech is a political leader of the time, and he was the one who held the army, who commanded the army. Therefore, he is called the Melech. Right now, in Eretz Israel, according to the opinions of Kook and each other, it's called Malchut Israel. When Jews are in control of our country, it's called Malchut. It's called kingdom.
But at that time, they didn't have Malchut. They weren't in control of Israel.
He was the contending. So actually, I forgot to mention this. It's a good question that you asked. It says that why do we celebrate Lag BaOmer specifically? What is it about Lag BaOmer? Many historians believe that Lag BaOmer was the day in which Bar Kochba actually was able to control Jerusalem. And he was. We have proofs for that. Bar Kochba actually controlled many parts of Israel. I mean, you're thinking about guerrilla warfare of Jews against the Roman Empire, but you didn't know that the Jews were mighty strong and they had amazing military strategy. They were fighting guerrilla warfare, so you're in an advantage of some sort, and they were able to control Yerushalayim and to bring back the Avodat Bet HaMikdash for a certain period of time. I don't think it was a long period at all, maybe a few days, maybe a few months. But the day that he was able to rededicate the Avodat Bet HaMikdash was Lag BaOmer, according to historians. It's not written in the Sefarim, but they have their proofs. So he was Melech of a sort, right? Melech is a person who controls a certain area. It's called the Melech already.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Rabbi, I have a question for you. You said from you read historical books, and they talk about the 24,000 students died because they went to war. In the Gemara, it says that it's because they had lack of respect for each other. Is there any place within the religious text that they refer to the students as actually being in the Bar Kokhba revolt?
Yes. So I quoted actually Rav Shira Gaon. Rav Shira Gaon, I could pull this up for you, but Rav Shira Gaon was one of the Geonim. The Geonim period comes right after the Gemara period. So they're very connected. They still have the historical records or the historical messages of the centuries preceding them. And Rav Shira Gaon says, Metu b'shmada. Shmad. Shmad is a term that consistently refers to the Romans crushing the Jewish revolt. Shmada. So he says that Talmidim Rabbi Akiva died in the Shmada. There are other proofs for that as well. In the Gemara that you spoke about, if you look at it closely, it does not say that they died in a plague. It said that shemetu, and then it says metu be'askera. What is askera? One of the opinions over there is that askera is trouble breathing, right? It was this kind of plague that made you short of breath. I don't know what that reminds you of, but this is what it describes that. But the Gemara does not say that. It says metu mitara'a. What's mitara'a? You look in Masechet Sanhedrin. It says when a person dies, bror lo mita tova. It says that when you want to, if you kill a Jew for capital punishment, which never happened. If it happened once in 70 years, and the court was considered a murderous court. But if halachically, if you have to kill someone, you have to kill him in a good type of death. So there's different types of death. There's more severe, more humiliating type of deaths than others. Mita ra'a, the worst type, the most humiliating type of death, is be'saif, with a sword. Okay, so mita ra'a that it says in the Talmud could refer also to being killed by battle, by sword. Another few proofs from the Gemara that this was the revolt of Bar Kokhba is not directly from that story, but from a different story in which Rabbi Akiva goes and he invites the house of someone who's mourning for the death of his child, and he says in his hesped something remarkable. He says, "Bayom hahu yigdal hamisped kemisped hadad rimon." He quotes a pasuk that is like a mourning for the death of Achav Melech Israel. For those who don't know who Achav was was from the northern kingdom, right? Not from Judea, from the Israelites. And over there they give him a beautiful eulogy. I mean, like he was a Rasha Gamur. He made idols for the Eged. So why are we so why are we speaking about his death? Why are we mourning him? It says he had one good quality to him. That when Naaman, one of the kings surrounding Israel, came to fight against Am Yisrael, he didn't go to the back. He went to the front of the line with his soldiers. He took his chariot to the front lines of the battle, and he fought personally against Naaman. And because of that, we remember him. And Rabbi Akiva is quoting that pasuk, meaning that the person who died right now, the person that they were mourning, one of the children of Rabbi Ishmael, died in the revolt as well, defending the Jewish nation. There's many proofs for it in the so what it says that lo nahagu kavod ze lazeh, that's part of the war. I mean, if you're fighting a war and you have no respect for your fellow your fellow colleague who's fighting the war alongside you, then of course they're going to be deaths. You're not in congruence. You're not fighting together. We all know this. You have to have a strong morale at the battlefront. And therefore, lo nahagu kavod ze lazeh, there's also the reason why they died from Hashem, but it's also a practical reason why they died, because they had no respect for one another. They had no respect for each other's lives. They'd rather each one fight the little war, each band on its own, than fight together as a whole. Because you had a disagreement, this person is not religious enough. How could I fight with him?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Speechless.
No, very good. No, just on time. Very, very good. Okay, Rabbi, thank you again for your time.
My
and
pleasure.
for amazing class. We we feel that we are more ready for the Ilula, for Lag BaOmer, and also for Yom Yerushalayim, and then Shavuot, so a lot to go. So thank you. We will be in touch, and hope to see you in more classes.
Be'ezrat Hashem. All the best to you guys. Shavua Tov Vorach. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
And I would like to tell, okay, Rabbi, goodbye, thank you.
להתראות.
Okay, all the rest, just again, so this coming Thursday, we are not going to have a class with Rabbi Yoram Dayan. He's busy this Thursday. He will join us next week. That's one. Second, please be ready for the Ilula. Again, we're going to do it on Zoom on Thursday, 10 days from now. So we'd like to see all of you and your family. And a day after, we are going to a very nice Shabbaton. So I hope you enjoyed the Yom HaAtzmaut Shabbat. And see you tomorrow and on Shabbat, Ilula, and another Shabbaton. Thank you, everybody. Sammy, good to see you in Florida.
Sammy, when are you coming back? We miss you.
Thank you. Wednesday night. Wednesday, God willing. God willing. Wednesday night.
All right.
I told you we miss you. Yeah,
your granddaughters read beautifully Saturday. So
both of them.
Rabbi.
No, Rabbi left.
He left. Okay.
You can talk with the others, Sammy. But you look good in Florida. Maybe we need all of us to go to Florida.
Yeah, welcome. Florida is waiting. Look, restaurants are full. Everybody has a mask outside the restaurant. When you go to shopping, Costco and Walmart and all those places, everybody is.
Stores full?
In my building, repeat.
Is the stores full? Lots of people in the stores?
There are people. I don't feel that. Yeah, there are people. Yeah, there are people. Yes. There are people.
Steve, did you get my email about Pirkei Avot?
yes, the girls will be ready for Saturday. So
Excellent, very good.
yeah, it's very nice. What you do is very nice. It's beautiful to see all the children reading on Saturday.
And now we have more. We have Rabbi Kafka's kids. All is
And
good.
you know that it's a double mitzvah you do, because not only do you get the kids to read and come, but it forces us to come too.
Excellent. So you know what? I will extend the Pirkei Avot until Rosh Hashanah.
And then you have bakashot.
I think
At that point, what'll happen?
vote by all the kids.
But I'll do it sick. I'll drop my kids off on Friday night. They can stay with you and you can take them.
They are more than welcome. You are not threatening me.
Bernard, I was very impressed with the piyut of the rabbi.
Oh,
Very
that's so nice.
Sammy, who will live it in the Ilula?
Hna Israel Ochwana Hodu Ladonai Kito Gileona. I was very impressed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, very good. Bernard, is he also Chazan?
Yes.
Very good. Okay,
Yeah.
I will call you tomorrow.
Bezrat Hashem, guys. Laila Tov. Happy you enjoyed.
Okay,
I learned
bye.
a lot. It was nice.
I'm going
Yalla,
to
bye.
close the. Oh, it
Toda.
was recorded. Okay, I'm going to close the Zoom. Bye, everybody.